Hello and good evening. It is 5:26 p.m. and I have finished work for the day, so it is time to get a writing. I started writing down my revision notes on the bus, chapter by chapter. I have a big picture idea of what I want to do based on the beta reader feedback. There are a few major changes I'm making and a lot of small things that I'm going to sprinkle in throughout that I think hopefully will get it ready to query, which is another big topic we'll be talking about today, the indie publishing versus traditional, and my thoughts on that, especially for this current manuscript. Another thing for today, hold on. It was just my birthday, and my aunt got me this adorable tea set. And my tea cabinet is a mess, and you know how much I love tea. We're probably going to drink some tea today. So I want to clean/organize my tea cabinet, which I think will be a nice little respite from some writing and revisions. But first, before we do anything, I don't want to get too cozy here and distracted. So I have a free drink to get because Starbucks got they didn't give me my free drink on my birthday, so they sent me an email that I can get it now. So I'm gonna go right at Starbucks for a little bit. There's this joke in my friend group that whenever there's a long silence, I like to ask this question. And so now all my friends try and guess when I'm going to ask it and get ahead of it before me. So now I rarely ever get to ask it. So, who had the best day? And you don't have to argue that you had the best day. Sometimes people argue that they had the worst day, but it's fun to just hear about what everyone's up to, what they got going on. So, if you did any writing, if you didn't do any writing, how was your day? I, at the coffee shop, had some great progress. I now have my notes for chapters 1 through 12 on the changes I want to make. There's some pretty major changes, but I don't think that they're not as major as some other revisions I've done before. I'm not completely cutting out like a third of the story like I've done in the past. So it's definitely, manageable, and I'm excited about all the things that I need to change. A lot of them are just really deepening the backstory and reasons for kind of motivations for my main character. Well, there's two main characters. One of them, crowd favorite, people really love him. So I feel like he's kind of in a good spot. The other one, she's like definitely more of an uphill battle. I've made her pretty unlikable, which I think means that I need to have a little bit more justification for people to want to follow her. Especially because this book, my last book, I think people got into it really quickly, and it's a lot more bingeable. This one, people have told me that it's better that it's not as bingeable, or not better, but just different. That, sometimes they like a book that they can sit with for a little while, and that just like definitely gives them more pause and more content to think about. But I think it's still an issue, kind of, especially in the beginning, which brings us to the idea of querying, because there's definitely a different ethos if I want to query this and if I'm revising it for the trenches, if you will. And if you aren't familiar with traditional publishing or you're kind of new to the concepts, basically there's two options. One is indie publishing or self-publishing, which is what I did with my first book, The Power of Shadows. And that is where you assume most of the kind of risk and all of the different parts of the publishing process. So you have to organize your own editing, you have to organize your own cover design, you have to organize all of that, and then you get a little bit more of the benefit, so you kind of own more of the process and more royalties, theoretically. But then there's traditional publishing, which is how most of the books that you see on the shelves are published. And I'm actually done cutting this, so give me a second and we'll start cooking. I'm also gonna put some tea on while I cook. Have a fun little beverage. But basically, there's also traditional publishing, which is the route that most of your beloved authors probably went, where they go through one of the big publishing houses. And you can't go straight to a publishing house. You have to have what's called an agent. And the agent represents you to the editors. And it's widely known that the querying process is not the most enjoyable. They call it the query trenches, and you're in the trenches for a long time. I saw a statistic somewhere that authors on average write 4 books before they get an offer of representation from an agent, which is just kind of crazy to think about, that, you know, the number of manuscripts that are out there that have never made it to publication from these authors' pasts. But long story short, in order to get an agent, you have to write something called a query. And you're probably familiar with querying if you know about the process, but a query has a few components. One is a blurb, kind of like a back jacket blurb, that entices the agent to your premise, your characters, kind of the whatever you think are the most marketable factors from your story. And then there's also the metadata, so how much, oh, that's not quite clean. There's the metadata of the book, so that's like the word count and the genre and all the basic facts, and then a little blurb about you. That's kind of all of the parts to a query. But then you usually also send the first few pages, and the goal is to get the agent to request either a partial or a full. So partial is they want to see like 50 pages or 100 pages. They're curious, they want to know more. Full, obviously, they get the full manuscript, and then they can read it and decide whether they want to offer representation. So in short, you really, which is the same with readers, but you want your first part of your story to be very compelling and make somebody want the full thing. Yeah, so that's kind of the short and short. And although like I like a slow burn, I like a book that makes you think a lot, I definitely want a book that makes people turn pages. Like I love reading page turners, and that's what I like to write. Okay, while that cooks, we can start organizing the tea cabinet since we're making tea. It's kind of become a dumping ground, and this is one of the places I go most often in the apartment. I make tea almost every day, and it's just not great. Like there's definitely some fragile glass stuff in here that I nearly break like 90% of the time that I come. So I was thinking we can also reorganize that. Today we're gonna do decaf Earl Grey. I've been on a big decaf kick, and also it's like 7:15 now, so definitely not time for caffeine anymore. Feeling a bit whimsical, so do the little submarine tea steeper today. My whimsy has failed me. So here are kind of my current thoughts on traditional versus self-publishing. Basically, I really enjoyed self-publishing The Power Shadows. I designed the cover. I got to have a lot of creative control. That was amazing, but I had originally set out to traditionally publish it. I sent like over 100 queries. I stopped tracking it after a little while because it got a little depressing. And that was like months. Oh wait, one second, I gotta go grab that. And now for the finishing touch. Back to the tea. I did query it, but in the end, I completely understand why it didn't get me an offer of representation. It is a great book. If you haven't read it or heard of it, it's called The Power Shadows. It's a young adult fantasy novel about a princess going to rescue her brother with elemental magic, love triangle, and it's really fast-paced and I think a good balance of fantasy and romance where it doesn't sacrifice one for the other, in my opinion. But it's definitely not the level of new or marketable that is really required in this day and age to get published by a traditional publishing house. So completely understand. This new book, however, I do think has a little bit more of that special sauce that could get potential representation. And I do still kind of dream of having to do less, especially having a full-time job and not kind of wanting to sacrifice my career. I saw a TikTok the other day by one of my favorite authors, Nisha Sharma. She's amazing. And she was talking about how most authors just have a full-time job. Like, the dream of being able to be a full-time author and write all day is just not possible for even people who are traditionally published, because the majority of people are mid-list authors. They're not the Sarah J. Maas's or the Emily Henrys or, the people who really get to dedicate their full time to it because they're, big blockbuster sellers. So if that's kind of going to be my forever, because I do love writing. I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. The dream needs to accommodate having the brain space for both, having the brain space for the work day that I had today and also some writing afterwards. And in that case, traditional publishing does seem like a good balance. Also, there are so many super uber successful self-published authors who are able to make a full-time living off of their writing and just like are powerhouse badasses, but the amount of like words that they need to output and just books in general is insane. Not insane in a good way. Like, I cannot imagine writing that much. There are people who are putting out like 3 books a year, and I just don't work that fast. I don't think that they'd be the quality that I'd want at that speed. And I'm not rushing to get anywhere, if that makes sense. So with that being said, even though it broke my heart into a million little pieces the first time I tried it, I am going to query again, and I'm going to take you along the journey so we can kind of see how it goes and do it together and hopefully be a little less alone. Speaking of being alone, if you've ever queried, maybe we can chat down in the comments how it went for you, if you have any tips, things like that. Yeah, being a writer can be lonely, so I'm going to speed through and finish organizing this little thing, and then we can get back to some writing. I do also have this adorable vintage Lenox set of the little spice houses. They're all so cute, and they're so cute that I am scared to put spices in them. I also don't actually cook enough or well enough or with enough variety that I would need all of those. So thoughts on putting tea in there, because I do have a whole lot of loose leaf tea that needs a prettier home. Yep, we're gonna do it. Thought is, I'm going to put the loose leaf tea in a little one of these, and then to remember what it is, I'm gonna write on the bag which spice container it is and put it in this little drawer. Maybe not like the best method, but it will be the cutest method. So I have this cute little tea dispenser thing. You can just grab one from the bottom. And I think I'm gonna make this my decaf central because I'm trying to drink a little bit less caffeine. I had a mini little concussion thing, and I'm just scared of caffeine now and my brain in general. So I'm gonna start stocking this. I also have this cute little tea book thing that I got from Home Goods at some point, and it does have teas in it, but I think I'm going to try and stock it up with some more. That's my fork. I gave up on organization, so now it's just going to be a box of random teas. This used to be my absolute favorite in college. It's Fast Lane. I found out about it when I toured the Celestial Seasonings factory in Colorado, and it has more caffeine than an espresso. This literally got me through college. They have a caffeine-o-meter. This one's probably honestly expired, but if you're looking for a lot of caffeine and you don't like coffee, this does the trick. I've successfully eaten dinner now. It's 9:05. I got distracted FaceTiming one of my friends, but the little tea station is done. First, let's look at the little coffee station where I put stuff. So here is the new relocation of the Nespresso, which is a much, much better location. And then we have, big reveal, the little tea corner. I really could not be more pleased. She is so, so cute. And then I have some extra tea down in the cabinets below. But now it's like so much more aesthetic. Very pleased with that on the agenda. And not so pleased with the little submarine thing. It's definitely not fine enough for the tea that I put in here, but I mostly drank it. I just didn't want to drink all the leaves at the end. So I might honestly make another cup, and then we can go back to writing out the revision plans for Potentia. And I just realized I haven't really talked about what it is, but Potentia is a dark academia rivals to lovers fantasy novel, and it's about defying the laws of physics. So there's all these different university city-states basically, and the capital one, Potentia, is very exclusive and very hidden, and their commodity is patents. So they kind of like sell patents to the rest of the country, if you will, and they're also where the government's based. And so our two main characters, Margot and Felix, end up getting into the Capital University and going, and when they get there, they discover that through all the research, the people of Potentia have discovered you can defy the laws of physics, which means walking on walls and ceilings, and it's very atmospheric and lots of STEM dark academia, which I love and I feel like there's not enough of. So I'm very excited about it and very excited to revise it. And during the time when I was waiting for my beta reader feedback, I was also plotting the second, The Power of Shadows. That one's also the start of a series, and let me actually go grab that. So this is The Power of Shadows, and my boyfriend's sister got me the cute little mushroom bookmarks. They're so, so cute. But this is The Power of Shadows, which is the first book that I self-published, and I need to write more. It's the start of a trilogy, and so I definitely want to get the second one out, especially if I don't know, I want to be able to finish the story, and if I want to be taken seriously or have any sort of career as an indie author, I need to start pumping out some more books. But it's hard to have both the dream still of traditional publishing and also want to self-publish, because they're just, well, two different series, first of all, and I would love to like put my all into self-publishing, but it's just kind of like a different mindset and a different type of book. And I think different things sell when you're pitching a book to people on the internet who would want to pick it up and read it just because they know you, versus when you're pitching it to literary professionals who want to see something new, and it has to be definitely a lot more, I don't know how to say it, but definitely has to be like new, and you have to consider the industry and you have to consider all sorts of other things, versus when you're just writing a story that you think people would like and that you would hope they would enjoy and that you're just trying to get out there. It's just a whole different mindset around it. So I'm gonna do some revisions for Potentia, and then we'll get back to writing the sequel. 9:19 now. I know the normal 5 to 9 after 9 to 5 would technically be over, but I am not nearly that much of a responsible adult that I go to bed anywhere close to 9. So let's do maybe 40 minutes and then I'll check back in at 10 and see how many of the chapter revision notes I can write by then. This is what we have going on so far. I got incredibly distracted on TikTok. So I have notes up till chapter 15 out of 36 and it is 10:20 p.m. so a little bit later than I said check-in. But you know what? We still made progress for the day. I'm feeling pretty good about it. I might try to write my notes for a few more chapters, but I think I'm probably going to do that from bed and try and wind down for the evening. And maybe I'll review the feedback from the beta readers before going to bed. I think I'm kind of incorporating everything. I'm trying to, well, I read all the feedback and then I tried to let it sit, let it percolate a little bit and just give it time to kind of absorb in my subconscious and think through what really stuck out and what really I want to incorporate rather than going down as like a checklist. And so that's the idea of this process, but I do still want to go back and review and make sure that I'm not missing anything and that there's not anything that I really thought stood out to me that, you know, I haven't been thinking of in this process as I'm writing it all down. But without further ado, I'm probably going to sign off for the evening. Thank you for coming and spending a nice little work week evening with me, doing some writing, doing some organizing, and please comment what you're working on down below, even if you're not planning on publishing it, if you don't have any idea traditional indie whatsoever, it doesn't matter. I would love to chat about all of our writing in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!